Hi everyone, my name is Victoria Ford. I'm a junior in the nursing program at Bloomsburg. My project is on women's rights in the Middle East. So my first slide discusses some reasons why rights are lacking, especially for women in the Middle Eastern countries. So this slide is just meant to kind of give everyone an idea of the difference in women's rights in a Western country like the United States versus a Middle Eastern country. You can see the facts on the left are from the Middle Eastern countries, whereas the ones on the right are from Western countries. All of them were actually facts from the United States. You can just see from the comparison, women in Saudi Arabia just got the right to vote in 2015 versus the United States, women had the right in 1919. So there's just a huge difference there. Females in the workforce in the Middle Eastern countries, they just aren't looked at as valuable and as productive as men are. But if you look at different articles and things, they can add so much to the countries if they were incorporated into the workforce more. Versus in the United States, 47% of our workforce were women in 2010. In Saudi Arabia, rape victims can be charged with different crimes, and domestic violence isn't recognized as an issue or as a crime simply because the men have more power, so the women don't have the right to go against them. And then on the right, you can see the consequences for if you would perform the same act in the United States. So there's a few different things in particular that are being done to raise not only the awareness of the lack of women's rights in the Middle East, but also have a positive change. A couple things that the women themselves are doing in the Middle Eastern countries is, one, they're becoming more educated. A couple different articles I read were talking about how more women are graduating from universities than men. So they're becoming educated, doing things they can implement into society. And then they're getting involved in the media and social media just to get it out there that they don't have rights and they should have rights, and just making more people aware of the current status of women's rights in these countries. As other countries go, Western civilizations that are more advanced in human rights and women's rights, they need to lead by example and continue to emphasize the importance of human rights, women's rights, and all of those sorts of things that the Middle Eastern countries haven't yet followed suit. And when they all have international meetings and such, they need to make sure that this is a discussion. that they need to be making change and showing improvements and things like that. So we have already seen some change in the past couple of years regarding women's rights in these countries, which is always a positive thing. One of those things being, as I discussed in the last slide, more women becoming educated in this region. That's always a positive thing. It's kind of like a snowball effect. Being educated opens a lot more doors and a lot more opportunities. Being educated can also link into the politics. Women in this region are beginning to increase their political presence, and they're also becoming politically aware. So they're aware of what's going on, they keep themselves updated, and that in turn helps them. In Saudi Arabia in 2015, as we talked about earlier, the women have gained voting rights, so that's a step in the right direction. And there's also a lot of cultural activist groups and women's rights activist groups that are working to change laws and other sorts of things that are kind of societal norms right now in the Middle East. They're working to change the views and have a more open and equal view of things. So this is just my reference page. It's a list of all the sources and sites that I got my information for the presentation from. As kind of a wrap up, I just think it's great that we're making strides in the Middle East for human rights and women's rights, and think that it's important that we continue to do so. And as a country that's already established in human rights and women's rights, that we continue to be a part of that and help that along. And also just to stay up to date and not be stagnant in human rights, women's rights, any sort of thing. And even as a Western country that's already developed that, just to maintain equality.